This is the story of two trips I took one week in August to try out my new camera and lens combination. These were the first big trips that I took trying out the Nikon D7500 with the Nikon 18-35mm lens. I'll be honest, it's not been a smooth transition and I've had focusing issues which I'm still trying to work on. But let's leave that for now and join me on my first ever photo trip to Birdland in Bourton-on-the-Water. Sometimes one of the things that you've got to do if you're new to photography, or if photography isn't like your main job, is make a few compromises, which means you can't always be looking at the best landscape at 4 o'clock in the morning or at 10 o'clock at night. I've come here today to a place called Birdland, which is not far away from where I live, and it means that I'm going to get a chance to do some wildlife photography that otherwise I just wouldn't be able to do. Now, it's a compromise. It's not going to be they're not going to be the best shots in the world, but they're certainly going to be better than some of the things that you get. And you know, you have to do these things if you want to progress with your art form. This is also going to be the first big test that I've done with my new camera, the D7500 from Nikon, with the 18-300mm lens on the front. Now, I've been noticing it doesn't seem very sharp when you zoom into it, especially at high zooms. Although I think it'd be all right. I think it's okay if you process the image and you do it well enough. Let's see what I can get out of it, eh? I've just been through the first part of the park, which was penguins, and this is probably the best set of birds I think we'll be able to get for the day, mostly because you can get fairly close to them. One of the penguins is right up to the front of the thing. I couldn't get any decent photos of him, but some of the ones that were a bit further back, I think I might have got some good shots there. Like I said, coming to places like this, it ends up all being about compromise, but that doesn't mean that you can't get some really great shots there. And hopefully that's what I've got. And that was what I had. I'm really pleased with how some of these penguin shots turned out, actually. I'm really pleased with how sharp they are as well, given the results that I'd had before. But it turned out that penguins weren't the only bird that I was going to be getting up close and personal with, as I seemed to arrive at one enclosure right on time. That's been my favourite part of the day so far. I have just spent some time with the flamingos, and I was lucky enough to get there just after they'd been fed, so they were all crowded round trying to get some food. It meant that I think I've got some real close-ups of flamingo faces, which is something I'd never be able to get in the wild. I'd never be able to get here if I came here normally and they were all scattered throughout the lake, because even with a 300mm lens, you just can't get that sort of shot. So hopefully very lucky. Obviously we'll see what happens when I get back into Lightroom and see what the actual shots look like, but for now I'm very pleased with the way that today is going so far. I've not been here very long, you know. Most of the time it's been, I'm going to take a picture of this, or I'm going to try and some video of this, and I think I might have got a little bit of video of flamingos, and if I have, you've seen that cut in. And I did get some images of flamingos. This is actually my favourite of the lot. I'm really pleased with the sharpness of this one, which goes to show that I can do it, I just have to get better. In fact, all of the flamingo shots were pretty sharp. Some of them absolutely tack sharp on the eye, which I'm thrilled with. I love the water drop on the end of the nose in this shot, and I was actually very pleased with the shape that the bird made in the frame as well. Now, these weren't the only shots that I took that day, but this one was definitely my favourite. Anyway, there's a big bird over there just behind me. I'm moving into Africa right now. This is the little Africa section that they've got. So let's see what they've got. The other problem that we've got here, of course, is that everything that is, well, most things are in a cage, which isn't the best way of shooting anything. Now, you can get some shots through windows. Some of the birds are on their own lake, but some of the things are in cages, and even with a long zoom and when you're really focusing through the bars, you still can't get the bars out of the way. So really what you're looking for if you're shooting birds through bars are the birds to be a little bit further away so that the bars will fade out as much as possible. And luckily these aren't the big thick bars that I've seen in some places, but still they can be a problem. Despite the cages, I got a nice few shots. I also got to see some pelicans, and again, I didn't seem to be struggling with the focusing, but my favourite of the shots was this snowy owl. He's pin sharp despite having bars on the cage and despite it not being in the best location to take the shot in the first place. And with that, that's the day at Birdland done. Now, I'm pretty much back where I started. You could see behind me the entrance to the place. Last video I made, I was talking about shooting through cages. And I think I've got a couple of shots that are pretty good. After I did that, there's a whole dinosaur bit in the park as well, where you can go around and see model dinosaurs. That was quite good. That was better than I expected, because there might be the odd shot there that could be interesting, mostly because you don't post dinosaurs online very often. Anyway, the next thing to do is to get those shots back into Lightroom and see how I actually did. On the whole, I was very pleased with the shots that I got at Birdland, and here's that dinosaur shot, just in case you were wondering what it was like. But I wanted some more challenges, and that's certainly what I got later that same week when I headed to Longleat Safari Park to try to get some shots of a lion. Longleat is somewhere that I used to go when I was a kid, and I really like it. I really enjoy coming here, and they've changed it around a little bit, which I that's good. That's all new. That's stuff, so I wanted to come and see it. Plus, it's a good test for the new camera, and like I said in the last video, you know, it's great if you can go to places, if you can go to, you know, spend time in landscapes, spend time and spend money going to locations in order to shoot. If you can't do that, then a place like Longleat, it's going to give you some shots that you'll just never get. I've already been around the African village, which gives you all of the llamas, and there are some sort of goat things there, and a tortoise, and of course the giraffes. And I've got here, I've fed, I've watered, I've abluted, which is always a nice thing to do. And now, if I can get around, I'm actually going to go around and see the actual animals themselves. Now, photography wise, I've got a little bit of a problem at the moment, which I'm trying to fix, and I'd really love some help if anyone can tell me what to do. I don't seem to be getting really sharp images. I mean, they're sharp, they're all right, they're okay, but they're not as pin sharp as I'd like. Although occasionally I will. Occasionally I'll get one. It'll be absolutely perfect. But so today is all about trying to fix that problem. And what I'm doing to fix that problem: higher shutter speeds, automatic ISO, which I'm not sure is necessarily a good thing, but we'll see when we get it back into the computer. I've set my ISO maximum of 1600, but I'm not entirely sure that that's going to do the job. We'll see when we finish. Now, because I'm in a safari, I've taken my jacket off, and because it's hot in the car, and I've taken my camera off its little strap thing, just so I've got as much ease of movement as well. I'm also taking my lens hood off, because even though it might be useful, I think it's more likely to fall off, and I really don't want it to do that if I don't have to. Anyway, let's go around and see if I can solve some of these problems that I've been having. I have to apologise for not having the best footage here, although what you see is all from the D7500, so if you're wondering what that camera's like for video, well, there it is. Largely it was good, I have to say, but it's a pain having to focus through that screen on the rear and not through the viewfinder, which isn't great if you're hand-holding your video, especially with a super zoom lens on the front. Nevertheless, I got a few shots in the first part of the park where the deer and the antelope play. The animals were actually quite close to the car, so there wasn't much of a need to zoom in. I got a lot better focusing, a much better hit rate than I've been getting as well. However, on some images I was still getting a softer focus than I was looking for. Of course, my reason for going to a safari park was to see some much more exciting animals. This is very exciting. We're just about to enter the tiger enclosure. So it's the start of the carnivores. You see, I've lost my hat because it's got quite hot in here actually. But yeah, I'm a bit worried because, you know, cats don't like me very much. Didn't see a thing. Of course, that's the problem with wild animals. They are wild animals, and they're not here to put on a show for you. They're here largely for conservation and for us to look at if they let us. Well, the tigers didn't this time, so let's see if there's something else that I can get. We're still driving through the lion enclosure, actually, very slowly moving forward. I would say don't drive your car and film yourself at the same time, but I'm going so minusculely slowly that actually it's not going to matter a jot for me. However, I haven't seen any lions yet. That's not strictly true. I did see some. They were behind a cage. Clearly they've been kept apart, and there seems to be a blockage in front of me, so I assume that's because there's lions up front. But there's also 2 lanes of cars, and whether or not we'll actually get to see the lions properly, I don't know. Let's hope so anyway, because I'd love to get a picture of a lion. I've actually just seen the perfect shot. It was the sun started to come out, and it was the light coming through, sort of dappled light coming through the trees and landing on a log. It had a beautiful leading line to it. I'm not going to get out of the car and take the picture because there's lions around apparently. I can see them. They're right in front of us. They're lying down, but they're also sort of sitting up a bit, so it's a bit better than the tigers. The tiger was just completely lying down. I wouldn't have been able to get anything anyway. But here, this is a little bit different. I'm just going to get the camera out now. I got one. I got a lion. I got 2 actually. I think one is possibly better than the other. Both, of course, shot through the car window, and neither of them as pin sharp as I think I would have liked. But at 300mm, I don't know. You've got to allow a little bit of softening on a super zoom lens like that. So at the moment, very pleased. I'll have to get them back into Lightroom to see what I actually get from it. There's actually 2 prides at Longleat, and I've been through the first one now, and we're just about to go into the second one. I imagine, like this, there'll be a small area where those lions are, and everybody will crowd around them, so it'll take a little while to get there, but once we've seen them, then we've seen them. Sorry there's not a lot of video footage of animals in this, which I wanted to do some more, but actually it's kind of run and gun, because there's cars behind you who want to see the thing that you're looking at. There's cars in front of you who are moving off and possibly getting in your shot. And if I want to take photos, if I want to take stills, then I really need to make sure that I've got stills. I've got to have the skills to get the stills. God, that's awful. That's so terrible. Right in between the car and the fence, that's the lions. They're just sat there waiting for me. I'm hopefully going to get a decent photo here.
And, well, I think I did. Thankfully, the big cats were on either side of the car this time, and I was able to get a few shots that I'm very pleased with.
So that's the safari park done, and I've just parked up. I had a really good experience with the wolves then. I don't know that I got any photos, but they crowded around the car. I saw them really up close, far too close, in fact. If they were just 2 foot back, I probably would have been able to get some really good shots, but I'll see what I get when I get back into Lightroom, because often I've come on trips and I've looked through the photos as I'm going along and I think, I don't like this, I don't like that, I can't share that with anybody, that's not really any use. And yet I get to a point where I put them into Lightroom and suddenly it changes things, that seeing them in the biggest format that they can be, seeing them and being able to edit them and sort of take out bits that you don't, or dodge and burn in bits that make it a little bit more interesting. All of that actually makes a massive, massive difference on whether or not you can do anything which is good with these photos, which in the back of a camera might look awful. Similarly, I've had shots where in the back of the camera they look absolutely amazing, and then you put them into Lightroom and you go, no. I think it happens to all of us, but it's something I know a lot of photographers face. Let's put it that way. Anyway, now I'm going to have a look at the ground, the gardens. Hopefully there's things like koalas there. Hopefully there's other, I feel there should be koalas there. they mention those. There's a boat trip and things to do. So I might see if I can do that first. We'll see. Anyway, hopefully more photos to take. That's the important thing. That's why I'm here.
Actually, the boat trip was very good, but it took most of the time that I had left queuing up to see it. Nevertheless, I did get a few shots around the rest of the park as well, but the highlight of the trip was getting back into Lightroom only to find that I had my lion shot. Now, I would have missed this had it not been for the zoom lens that I had on. An 18 to 300mm lens was perfect because it just gave me that extra reach that I needed to capture the animals. It's a really good idea if you're going to see something like a safari park or even go to a zoo. If you've got that extra zoom in a lens, then put that lens on the front of your camera. Of course, I couldn't have done any of this if it wasn't for Longleat Safari Park. What an amazing trip, and even though I still haven't quite perfected my focusing, I've made a distinct step forwards in this trip, and I think I figured out what I might need to do to get it right. Thanks for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please do give it a like, and why not consider subscribing to the channel for more.